Hello, 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 hello. I hope everyone's having a good, happy 4th of July weekend because tomorrow is going to be on the 4th of July. So what better way to knock it off on the 4th of July weekend? And yes, I know it's dark. And I know it's dark right now. And my map book like 34% and stuff like that, which is really, really good. I do want to take something out of my time uh, not of today and stuff like that. I do want to say something about day four, and what I'm going on with me having Asperger's and ADD, attention deficit disorder, or antisocial personality disorder. This is something I've learned with the learned delayed gratification, and like I remember yesterday, I written this in my journal. It was like yesterday night, and it was like after when I said something where I read the 12 steps and 12 distance. But also, I was watching the movie Taxi Driver. I found it on Tubi and stuff like that, and I think this is the process of me learning how to start over. So I think my delayed gratification is something I need to tell y'all that ended me up in this conspiracy and this generacy of whatever what's going on. So I think I'd rather just tell the whole story from here and there. So all right. So what I've learned about delayed gratification is that like I keep on waiting. I overthink so goddamn much. Like there's this thing called Don's Donskivency. He said something that like overthinking can kill you. For me, when I was in high school, I mean, and this is my senior year, I thought I was the king of the world. I was running goddamn everything until after my ACT scores, my senior year. I got a 13 on the ACT. And there was this lady, this black lady who I have a lot of respect for, told me I could take it again. But I was too naive and so egotistical because I remember my wrestling days. I had Disney duels coming up. I had camp coming up. I remember my 19th birthday. I went to the Strip, which is in Tallahassee, Florida. I drank so much. I was partying like a party animal, and you know a lot of wild shit happened. So with my delayed gratifications, I do want to have the time to tell you that I do want to have time to tell you that about like what my financial mistakes that I'm holding on to. And yes, I read this in my journal pretty much last night, and this is kind of the way of me. Like I'm this is the post dirty 30 because when I was 30, I did not pretty much do anything. I remember at Palace, I went to a bar. Um, I didn't like the vibe there. I knew the vibe was not that great. I knew I was doing a lot better. I didn't tell my sponsor about it. I hope my sponsor didn't see it. But the person, Derek, offered me a beer. I couldn't turn down my homie, so I drink like at least like a beer somehow. So anyway, let me get to the financial mistakes what I'm holding on to. And yes, this is part of the learning delayed gratification that I've learned and sparked out of my head. So I'll give you like at least like 4 to 5 introspective of my delayed gratification, and also with the financial reflections with the cultural and semantic frameworks that I could understand and learn from. So, all right. So there's a difference between a mistake and a wound that I keep reopening, and the mistake actually happens once. So the holding on to it, the returning to it, a, the the replay of it, and particularly the cruelty of the 3 a.m. version of me, where all the numbers are the freshest, and that's something else. And that's not accountability. That's punishment. And punishment, I know, is a language I learned young in a system that I use fluently in wrestling. So let me try to be honest with both of the things, and these are the actual mistakes and what I've been doing with them since. So I'm gonna say pretty much about the loans, And this is definitely about my credit card loans and my student loans. So this is the one that I live close home. So the money were given to people. Some of it asked for, some of it offered, but it was asked for that never came back. Amounts that kept adding up. They were not small, and they were not in the context of what I was working with at the time. I had to replay differently depending on the night, and some nights I'm pissed off at the people who took and didn't return, and some nights I'm angry at myself for being the kind of person who gives when he cannot afford to, and most nights when it's both at once and two angers that kind of collapse into each other until what's left, and it's just a general shame that I don't have a clear object. So, but here's what I've been slower to look at. The loans were not random. They followed the provider reflex I wrote about before. The lean forward, the calculating someone else's need before they finish describing it. I was operating from a very old job description. And this was back in my high school years where I worked at a warehouse job where I was flipping signs. And I did it for 8 hours during that weekend. And I was just chipping in at Pizza Hut, just saving up money, but not really knowing what I was supposed to do. I was dumb, young, and naive, and just pretty much stupid. And that's and that's how it was. So, I mean, so once when that was assigned to me in my childhood, and it's never formally rescinded, I was the oldest son, and I had to provide. And the oldest son, whose people call, they don't make the cost of that visible because making the cost visible would be making himself too much. And that's probably me being the oldest son. But it doesn't mean that the people that I took should have. It doesn't absolve anyone. But it means making the mistake I'm actually holding isn't just lent money. I didn't have. I was still performing a role that I didn't constantly choose, and it cost me in ways I'm still counting. There's a Yoruba term in Nigeria. Anayoti ko ni iwan ma nj orioji. And it means that compassion without measure consumes the one who carries it. I was compassionate without measure. I called it loyalty, and I called it being there for people. And it was also underneath the only way I knew how to feel vulnerable, and the part that I kept quiet even from myself. And so there's a second part I want to add. Second part of the fifth. These were the seasons I did not track, and deeper stretches, sometimes longer, and where I had income coming in, and I couldn't tell you where it went now, not because it was spent on badly on any single thing, but just because there was no structure around it, no envelope, no category, no intentionally. It basically moved through and out, and I let it because tracking required looking, and looking required confronting the gap between where I was and where I kept telling myself I was trying to get. So the mistake isn't really that I spent money. The mistake is that I used the absence of tracking away of not having to feel the weight of the current reality. And avoidance dressed up as busyness. I was too focused on the music, on the writing, on the next thing, which was very, very true. And, I have articles on Medium that I do have. For some reason, I can't post it on there because YouTube cannot let me. But it was also convenient. The not knowing protected me from having to sit with what the knowing would have asked for me. And the cost of that compounded is sitting somewhere in a number I'm still trying to work backward to. I don't know the exact figure. And that's the point and the problem. So, now, the income I didn't protect. So, when the gig income was coming in, even irregularly, there were stretches where the amount was enough to have changed something if I had been different than I am now. if I know what I know now about cash flow, about the irregular income trap, how scarcity mindset spends money during the good month because some parts of the nervous system knows the lean one is coming and would rather spend than let it be taken. And it's not hypothetical. That's what happened. Flush months didn't build anything because the flush felt precarious and spending it felt like having had it at least. I mean, having something even briefly, even if the next month was exactly what the anxious part of me expected, which I had like numerous and numerous times happen to me like in my 20s, but I didn't really expect it to know. You know, like for example, with the job I was supposed to have in Nashville, Tennessee, kind of destroyed me and kind of broke me in a way. But I'm not sure what I call that a mistake exactly. And for me, I think I call it grief. And the version of me, I've spent that money that was not reckless. Personally, I was scared. I was doing the thing frightened people do, and I was consuming the resources before it disappears because at least then you had it for a moment, and I was there when it was there. But I'm holding on to it as a mistake because the alternative, treating it as a same response to an early wound around financial stability. It feels like letting myself off a hook. I'm not sure I've earned the right to step off it yet. And let me repeat that again. It feels like letting myself off a hook that I'm not sure I've earned the right to step off yet. And, you know, I think that, like from a person who has Asperger's and have like ADHD or ADD, something like that, like, like this is the most truest things I've learned, not all of this. This is the truest thing I've learned pretty much in most of my 20s, now turning 30 basically in 2026. Oh, Lord. Woo! So, now the fourth thing to the matter is the things I didn't pursue because I didn't think I deserved a return is kind of, and this is kind of the hardest things that I have to face as a person. And I had to look myself in the mirror deeply inside, with all the beard, and I haven't had a haircut in weeks or whatever. So, like, this is one of the hardest mistake to name as a mistake because it looked like nothing from the outside. There's no purchase, no transfer, no transactions to point to. The absence of the action was rather than an action taken, but I've left real money on the table. Rates I didn't charge, rates I didn't raise, opportunities I didn't follow up because some part of me wasn't fully convinced I deserved the outcome, and those follow ups might have produced. And the internalized ceiling I wrote about before, it wasn't just a psychological artifact, it was an actual dollar figure that I didn't know exactly what it was, but it was real. And I didn't pursue it as a mistake. I keep making in the present tense, which makes it hard to hold at the distance of the past tense, where accountability was easier to practice. There's this Yoruba Igbo word that tells me about this. Inte, take a break for a second. Inte ko giba pe onyon ni eye ko enye ko ne se onyo te o ne. And it means that he who does not believe in his own worth will not do what is worthy of him. That's the mechanism. The belief precedes that behavior. The belief is old. And I've been acting on it faithfully, which means the misreturned isn't a single mistake. It's a pattern that is accumulated that I've been calling it realistically rather than calling it by what it actually was and what it actually is. And I had that time and time happen again in 2000. In my 20s. probably in my mid-20s for the exact, when I did shows in Nashville, in Michigan, in West Massachusetts, also down in South Florida. I may not remember. Also in Tallahassee, especially with Noise Feast. That is, I mean, Noise Feast was definitely the peak of my time, and that was the whole thing. So now I get to the fifth and final part, which I really want to keep this more abstain, and I'm gonna be brutally honest about myself, so I would not lie. And if I lie, call me out and donate me on Cash App so I can do a push up. So, what am I doing with all this? And it's a good question. So, now here's the part that I'm going to be careful about, because this is where the old patterns wants to step in. And also where the old pattern of myself wants to step in. So the system I grew up in used mistakes as evidence. The evidence of my character, of my worth, of what I deserved. A mistake wasn't something that happened. It's something who I was and something who were. And the appropriate response of that sustained punishment was not accountability and adjustment. And I know that now, knowing doesn't fully stop it yet, because the 3 a.m. version still shows up with the receipts. Still runs the number, what I gave anyway. What I didn't track, what I didn't charge, what I didn't build. But it still holds the folder of the evidence for a trial that I keep presiding over with myself in the dock. So, but accountability is not punishment. Accountability looks at a mistake, names it clearly, traces back to whatever was true then, and acts what charges now. So punishment just stays in the courtroom. It stays with the folder. And I'm trying to leave the courtroom. Not because I don't owe myself an honest reckoning, but because the reckoning was supposed to produce a changed direction, not an extended sentence. So my mistakes were real. The holding on to them, the way I've been holding on to them, that part I'm done with, or I'm trying to be, which is also something, even if it isn't everything yet. And it was by my journal that I written last night on July 2nd, with my late night writing. And this is the part where I had learned with my delayed gratification. Also, it is kind of like not sad of everything, but learning that delayed gratification had really took a toll on me. So that's why personally I want for me to actually invest in myself and actually praise for myself a lot more. Because that's why for me, like, I have a growth mindset and I'm praying to God like every single day. Not for social media, not for the views, not for the clicks, because I already hate social media. I already hate the fame. I already hate the clicks. I just want to do music for me and for me. You know, if it weren't for Aldo Benson, I probably would be doing this music thing for pretty much for this year. So shout out to Barbie AI and shout out to Aldo Benson, and also the other artists in Massachusetts who had brought me there. So I would say personally, that was my take of learning my delayed gratification. And if someone uses this, I hope this would take this for an experience, and I hope part of this influences you in your life, and I hope this will actually be the best way possible for you to be the best person you can be. So learn delayed gratification, and also take my advice from my personal experience of delayed gratification. All right, I know it's about to be the 4th. It's going to be like 34 minutes for the 4th of July. I just want to say peace out to y'all. I love y'all. Hope you have a wonderful day. All right, goodbye.